Okay, tonight will be a extension of our 12 p.m. class. So really 12 p.m. is like the idea and the theory, and some things, some tactics. And then 7 o'clock, this is going to be about exact things you can do. And again, start to implement tonight, tomorrow, to make your real estate business really efficient, um, especially with AI, right? Because that's kind of the way things are going. And the goal here is to work smarter, not harder. And most importantly, keep your business, keep the human part of the business, right? Because we know it's easy to just use AI or automate some things, but people really connect to the human touch in real estate. So do not lose that. And this is really about how to craft your emails and use AI in a way that keeps the human touch, but also helps you be efficient and come across in a professional way. All right, so AI powered emails for real estate success, inbox to income, which is the goal. First things first, has anyone heard of the RISE formula when using AI? Is that like a familiar, is that familiar to anyone? The RISE formula.
No, I never heard of
No,
it.
okay. Good, good, okay. All right, so if you're taking notes, write this down, take a screenshot, put it in your Google Docs. The RISE formula is going to help us use AI but make it as specific as possible. And this is something we can use and repeat with, which is why we included it in tonight's class, because you'll always be able to think of RISE and use that system for every email or every time you use like an AI, like a Chat GPT or Gemini. So RISE is R is for role. Who is the AI? What role do you want them to be? Input, you're giving them a situation that's happening or happened. Specifics, what specific details should they remember to include? And then expectation, what is the goal of this prompt? And then what is the tone that you want to deliver? We talk about tone a lot, whether that's friendly, whether it's relatable, whether it's professional, whether you want to come across as the expert of something. And the reason why agents, or I think businesses in general now that are using AI, it comes across very robotic is because they're asking generic questions. For example, write an email to a buyer explaining the home buying process. Okay, right, but it's not specific. It doesn't add your je ne sais quoi, right? It's not personable. And so the RISE method allows us to come up with copy that is strategic, that feels personable, that doesn't come across really stoic and static. All right, so role, input, specifics, and expectations. And then tonight we're going to go through a lot of different and very common scenarios. And then if anyone has a scenario that we don't go over and you're like, oh, Teonna, maybe how would we use the RISE method in this situation? We can do that as well. All right, so first, some examples so we can really make RISE concrete. Our role, here's an example how you would use that. Act as a top producing luxury real estate agent with 15 years of negotiation experience. The reason we do that is because that's very different than saying, okay, act as a realtor and explain XYZ, a home buyer process, or act as a realtor and help me negotiate this offer. Realtor or top producing luxury real estate agent, right? That right there tells them, who am I? Who am I? What do I embody? What knowledge do I have? What characteristics do I have? What experience do I have? Because if I just put in realtor, that could be a realtor that got their license just today. And that's a very different perspective than one that I'm looking to use that's helping me to negotiate an offer for my client. And so being really specific about what is the role so that the language that they use, the details that the AI or the chatbot uses is really specific and targeted to what you're trying to do. This is the difference between a really generic answer and a really specific, detailed, more targeted answer. So that's what the role is. You're telling the AI who to act like. Then we have I, which is the input. Now we're giving them details. I met a buyer, like this is the situation. I met a buyer, John, at an open house. He loved the kitchen, but worried about the small yard. Okay, so now I'm giving them context. If I just say, I met a buyer, it's not really giving a context for the AI chatbot to um, create content for. Whereas here, we met a buyer. His name was John. We met him at an open house. He loved the kitchen, worried about the small yard. That's super specific, which takes us to S specifics. Now I'm telling the chatbot what to do. Mention the nearby park to counter the yard objection. Keep it under 150 words. And we'll talk about a little bit later why it's important to let the AI know how many words to use. Because if someone's asking me a simple question and I'm giving them a 300-word paragraph, an essay, that's not real context. Like that's not real life. Um, or if I'm having a conversation, it's easier for me to remember like the important bits and pieces of 100-word answer than going into AI, getting a 500-word essay, and now I'm trying to have a conversation and remember all the bits and pieces that I need to remember for my conversation. So we have, who is AI acting like? What is the context? What are the specific details I want them to help me answer? And then the expectation. The tone should be warm but professional, in with a question to get a reply. So from these four things, I can tell that I'm going to be talking to John. So maybe this is my follow-up call after I have an open house. I'm going to call John and I'm having a discussion about the property and mentioning, hey, I know you mentioned, there was a bit of a small yard. You're looking for something larger, but something to consider is that there's a nearby park. Right, so that looks like this is the conversation that the AI or the agent is trying to have. So we have RISE, role input specifics expectation. Does anyone feel like when they use AI, if you use ChatGPT, that your input is similar to this, or you're like, absolutely not, Teonna, mine is really general compared to this?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when I use Chat GPT,
Mhm.
it helps me, and then it'll be like, "Do you want me to break it down?" And then that helps me too, because it gives you like three scenarios that you can
Mm-hmm.
use.
Exactly, exactly. And so we're using it, and now this is just how to get it really specific. So we have like a bigger context. So I love that. Antoinette has already started implementing some ChatGPT. This is how to refine it to make it even better for your business. First scenario, this is a buyer. And I feel like this is going to be really common. I know a lot of us have been doing open houses. This is a strategy we're going to use for our follow-up. So again, when you have an open house, you should have open house sheet, a QR code somehow, some way to capture the information of the people who come to the open house, right? You should have their name, email, phone number, right? So that you can follow up with them. Here's the strategy. Do not send an email, phone call, text message afterwards to say, hey, thanks for coming. No, right? Now, another tip, and this is not necessarily on here, but when you're at the open house, after you have a conversation with the guest, maybe they walk away, maybe they go upstairs or downstairs, and you're still in the kitchen waiting for other guests to come in. Jot down anything you can remember about the conversation you've had or any details they've shared with you. That way, and you can do that like on a little notepad, maybe something in your phone to say, hey, like hit the couple's name or the person's name, and then just quick notes so that when you follow up with them, you'll have some things to remember. Because we're crazy to think after an open house, you get all the signs, you go home, you eat something, you're going to remember what that conversation was about. So my tidbit is to kind of jot down notes after you have conversations with people who come to your open house so your follow-ups can be more specific. Okay, so with that, instead of saying thanks for coming, we're going to make sure that in our follow-up, we're going to reference a specific feature they like to prove that you were listening. So for example, if they say, oh, we really like the kitchen, oh, the floors were really nice, we appreciated that the home had 2 bathrooms because we need that, or even if they say the upstairs bathroom did not have a tub and we would prefer a tub, anything like that, you want to go ahead and use that so you can pivot to the next step, whether it's for, kind of encouraging them that that house will work for them, or maybe you have some options that could also work for them. So here's the prompt that you would put into your AI. Act as a friendly buyer's agent because we don't want to come across too harsh or too salesy, like buy this house. So it be a friendly buyer's agent. Write a follow-up email to a couple who visited my open house at blank. Okay, so again, this is the role that we're giving the AI. Input, they mentioned loving the kitchen island, but dislike the carpet. So again, you could switch a kitchen island out and carpet out to be whatever they mention. The goal, ask if they want to see a similar home I have coming soon that has hardwood floors, right? Because that gives a solution to one of their problems. They didn't like the carpet, but hey, I do have a coming soon, or I did see a home on the MLS they might like that have hardwood floors. And then you would say something like, be sure to make the tone low pressure and helpful. Because although we know we want to come across that way, this AI chat or whatever you're using does not know that, and it is not you. So if you don't tell them what tone to have, if you don't say ask the question or the specifics, they don't know to do that. So we have to feed them the information and allow them to construct something that hits all those targets. Because imagine once you call or, email this couple, they're going to say, oh, wow, she remembered that, we didn't like the carpet and she has a possible solution. They're more likely to follow up with a response because obviously they came to the open house. They're looking and they even gave you feedback. So that means they're really interested in the process. So giving them a possible solution is going to more than likely have them respond to you because they will want to see that property. Any question about the open house follow-up? This is a 10 out of 10. Use it, use it, use it. I know a lot of us are doing open houses, especially since spring market is coming up. We're going to be on open houses, getting content, getting experience. Make sure you always have some kind of follow-up method. I would say call and email is best. Okay. Next one, another common one. The buyer that ghosted you. Right? They show some interest, but then they stop responding to the DM, the text message, the phone calls, the emails, the newsletters. At some point, they stop. Do not say forget them. You want to follow up with them until they tell you to stop. So here's the scenario, okay? This lead was hot to buy. They were ready. They were ready to, rent, find a lease, find a house. But then for some reason, they stopped replying. We're going to use the 9-word email. Okay, this is a strategy via AI to re-engage them, but also not be annoying. Because that's something, realtors, we have a barrier with that. We're like, oh, I don't want to bother them. I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be salesy. Okay, but there's a way to do that. You are helping. You are helping. You are supporting. You are not selling or trying to be annoying. So this is the prompt we're going to use. Act as a direct, okay, but polite real estate agent. Write a very short, under 50 words email to a lead named blank who hasn't replied in 2 weeks. All right, so we're telling them again the role, how to act, specifics. Tell AI, do not use fluff like checking in. Hey, I'm just checking in with you, see if you were still ready to buy a house. It's not specific enough. It's not personable enough. It's not like considerate. If you're thinking about someone's looking to buy a house and then all of a sudden they stop responding after kind of having a conversation with you, something may have really happened. I've had leads who said, Teonna, there was a death in my family or something happened with XYZ, right? Like there's real life actually happening when people are buying a house. It's not like everything goes stops. I've had a client tell me she got laid off from her job. So you don't just want to say checking in. All right. But you also want to be concise. You don't need to make it a 4-page letter. The goal here is just ask a simple yes or no question about whether they are still looking for a home in whatever neighborhood. Your subject line, make this look personal. So it could be something like that. I might say like, hey, homegirl checking in, or is there anything I can do to support? Something that is like engaging with them, not just something like following up. Are you still looking? Why this works is that AI will, again, like I said, it will tend to overwrite. If we don't say make it under 50 words, it's like somebody over explaining. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't like when people over explain. Just tell me. Tell me. That's it. I don't need you to over explain. I don't need you to tell me all these different details. Once we make it under 50 words and include a yes or no question, it's more likely to have a high conversion rate. It's telling the person what you need, giving them an option to respond, and that's it. Yep, Tamira?
Yeah, I have a question because that just happened to me like this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I did an open house for an apartment. So she was like answering, but then after like Sunday, she just stopped responding. So, like how would I go about like reaching out to her? Should I just like reach out to her like once a week or like, you know, like what should I do if she just totally just disappeared?
Two things I would do personally. I would look back at the conversation or like however we engage, whether it's email, whatever, text message, think about the phone call and think like, what did that conversation go like? Because not a lot of times it's probably something we did or didn't do. And not in a bad way, but like say for instance, we've been talking for 9 days, but I didn't give an action step at any point. Like there was no a tangible step for them to take. Sometimes that'll make a lead go like, okay, I don't know what to do next. Sometimes they just don't know. So I would look back at the conversation. Then I would look at that and say, okay, what is something that could have changed here? What's missing here? What did I do too much of? Did I give too much information? And then I would follow up. And you don't even have to think about do I follow up once a week? Because hopefully your next follow up is going to be good enough that they'll respond back to you. So then I would use the prompt like this.
Okay. That sounds good.
Exactly. So this would be a perfect opportunity to use this prompt and see if they respond. I like to do phone calls
Mhm.
because it's direct. They can hear how personable you're being. And I find that people are likely to respond. And like, say if somebody doesn't answer the email, answer the phone call, I'll shoot them a text. I'll say, hey, like this is Teonna. Give me a call when whatever, when you get a chance or something like that. And then also send an email.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a great. When I say it's so common, do not beat yourself up if that happens. It's going to happen a lot of times. It's going to happen a lot. Yes. So you are in good company because it's going to happen, and you'll be surprised. Sometimes leads like they'll go, say for instance, they go to your KW website, they're house shopping. Some people just like to house shop online, right? They may not even have a pre-approval. Their credit score isn't where it needs to be. They have no money saved. They just spent it on a vacation, but they're just house shopping. But your KW website might say after this person looks at 3 listings, they're required to put in an email address. Right? That's great for you because now you're like, okay, I can actually capture this least information. But at the same time, this person may have just put their email in to keep looking at the different listings. So then when you reach out to that lead, check that email or give them a call, they may not answer or they just may answer a little bit but stop responding because in all reality, they were never ready anyway. Um, and something else could happen to where maybe they have an agent but they ended up on your KW website. Maybe you shared the link in your Instagram stories, and they're like, okay, I have an agent, but hey, they shared this house. Let me go to the link, and they're not house shopping. Well, maybe they didn't respond after you reached out to them because they actually have an agent already. So sometimes it's not necessarily something that we did good or bad. It's just we don't know the complete context of it.
Makes sense.
That's a great
Makes
question.
sense.
Yes, yes. All right, so that is the ghosting one or the not responding. That is everyone could probably use that. All right, we're going to move on to the seller scenario, okay, for our listing agents. The scenario is the curious homeowner. They're like, I wonder, I saw my neighbor's house, so I wonder what mine would sell for. I saw someone a couple homes down from me, they updated their house. So they redid their kitchen. And it got me thinking about like, should I redo my kitchen? So they're curious. They're not completely sold on selling their house, but they're kind of thinking about it. Here's the strategy for that. A homeowner asks, what's my home worth? Now you're like, tell them how they're just not going to call me and ask that. Maybe you share the link in your Instagram story or maybe even your newsletter. Click here to see what your home is worth, and then it'll lead to that page, or they need to input that information. Maybe you're door knocking and you're having that conversation with them about, hey, like a few homes on your block has sold. Would you like to know what your home is worth? So something like that. You're going to use AI to tease the value, but also you have to sell yourself as the expert needed to unlock that value. I talked about this in our social media training the other day. And sometimes we give information as agents, but we don't say, hey, here's the value. But the next steps for you to take include me. For example, and this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I see this a lot on social media content. You'll say like, okay, have you heard about the homestead exemption? And then like the realtor will list the benefits of using a homestead exemption and applying for it. But there's no next step that says, hey, you should use me as your realtor for whatever your real estate needs are. It just says, hey, here's the value. We have to be really explicit and clear because people do not just look at the value and say, oh, yes, the realtor gave me that information, so I need to use them. They just say, oh, thank you very much. Thank you for that free information. I'm going to go on about my life. I'm going to find a realtor tomorrow, and they're going to help me actually do it. But when we pair the value with, hey, you also need me, or if you need me to help you XYZ, then they're like, oh, she's actually going to help me with that. That's like posting about a grant. That's wonderful. Thank you for the information. But if at no point the content says, here's the grant information, and for next steps, such and such, reach out to me, DM, whatever the case may be, the people do not, they don't connect the one with the two. They do not. You have to be super explicit about that. So that's just a little tidbit for everything, but specifically for this. I see somebody put something in the chat. Exactly. Be super intentional, because if you don't say you need me for or for next steps, comment such and such, they won't. They'll call another realtor who did and say, hey, I saw this realtor Alasia post about the homestead exemption or about this grant. Do you know about it? Meanwhile, they could have just DM'd or called you and asked you that question. So that's definitely a piece there. So that's what we're using AI to do. We're going to tell them about a little bit about their value, their home value, but also let them know they need you to unlock that value. So here's the prompt. Act as a local market expert. Write an email to a homeowner inquiring about their home's value. Okay, so that's the context. This is the rule. Input. The market is shifting and online estimates are often inaccurate, right? Because you see on Zillow and all these other websites, all these different tools at the bottom and calculate this and calculate your mortgage, which is your offer be, which drives me insane when people say, oh, Zillow said my offer should be such and such. Literally, Zillow doesn't know. So make sure you put that context in there so your AI can encourage the homeowner to use you for actual accurate information. So goal, explain that you need to see the condition, right, of the house, because we don't know maybe what the actual house looks like, to give a true price, right? Because again, Zillow has no idea what the actual house looks like. They're just going off of information, maybe previous information from Zillow, but they don't know that the homeowner updated their kitchen, pulled up the carpet. They don't know that they finished the basement, added a half bath. So your value is that you can actually go to the house, right? Do a listing appointment to see the condition of the home and give them a way more accurate estimate for the home value. So you're being authoritative, yet you're also being accessible and helpful. So it's a little bit of both. This is a really good strategy to use, again, if you're doing door knocking, if you're cold calling, or if you have some kind of link that you're using to let people kind of tap into about their home worth. What is your home worth? Another option for sellers, the neighborhood update. All right. I love this one. And actually, I just found a realtor and their name was like the Minister of Real Estate. I was like, okay. But I wouldn't say that, but when using AI, you could position yourself as something of real estate. So you're going to do the mayor of the neighborhood. So think about the mayor. The mayor knows the ins and outs. They know what block is doing what. They know what's happening. They know all of that, right? So that's kind of the concept here if you're going to do like a neighborhood update. You're going to use AI, synthesize boring market stats into a compelling story. I have never posted a market stat update. I don't think I ever will. I don't think my client and most people even know how to digest that information or then know what to do with it. So instead of just posting market stats and what sold and how much sold and what percentage and all this stuff, make it into a story. People love a good story. Make it make sense to them, okay? So here's the prompt. Act as a real estate data analysis who speaks in plain English. Okay, I will paste some market stats below. I know in ChatGPT and Gemini, I'm always adding like make it relatable, make it down to earth. I'm always inputting that as my role because in my tone, because that's how I want my information to come across. All right, after you do that, you put the prompt in. You're going to add in market stats. You could get that from obviously the MLS. You can look up the zip code, add the market stats into the prompt. The task is going to be rewrite these stats into a 3-bullet point summary for a homeowner in whatever neighborhood you're using. Focus on how days on market is decreasing and what that means for their potential sell price. This information is much more useful than just saying, oh, days on market is only 13 or days on market is 62. Right, because I have active clients who will say, oh, like, can we put in a lower offer because it's been on the market for 13 days? I'm like, well, that's actually the opposite of what we should do, right? That means things are going pretty fast. Or even if it's a seller, right? We need them to be educated about what's the current days on market in this neighborhood so that they can have a realistic expectation about how long may my home be on the market, right? And what's too long and what's really fast. So actually explaining this, whether it's content, whether it's email, whatever the case may be, is much more helpful than just saying days on market is 62 days. All right, and then again, you paste your stats. Exactly. They never know. Or even, I think we have a seller I had last year, the days on market was like 42 days, and they thought that's so long. And obviously every seller wants their home to sell in one day, but 42 days wasn't bad, right? That was like an average for real estate, for Philly real estate, it was 42. They were used to all of the talk in the news when it was like 10 days and everything's flying off the market. Everybody thinks about that. They don't think about when it's a pretty calm market that 42 days actually isn't bad. That's just over a month, give or take. So this is really good. If you post this kind of content, this will be super helpful to make it a story. Even if you post it or even if you're talking about it, like if you're going to do a talking piece of content, this is going to be helpful as well. Now we talked about in R.I.S E, you do put the tone into like the AI, whatever you're using, you tell them what tone you want, friendly, down to earth, you want a professional, you want an expert, luxury, whatever the case may be. But even after you get that first response from AI, you still want to go in and do a few things because it's not going to be perfect on the first try. And most importantly, it's not going to sound like you on the first try. So here's 3 different tones that you want to, if you want to kind of make it even more exact, you can go in and refine it with this. Number 1, the professional. Make the tone professional, objective, and data-driven. Use concise language. This is best for, think about your target client here. Is your target client or ideal client, are they an investor? They're going to be more data-driven, right? They care about their numbers. They're like, what's the return on investment? They care about that. High-end sellers, right? A lot of luxury. They're like, okay, I got a lot of money tied up in here. What are the numbers like? Same thing with attorneys. So think of who you're talking to and what you're talking about. What tone do you need for them? Because again, most of my content is like relatable, down to earth. But in some scenarios, even with my ideal client who likes that tone for me, depending on the context or thing we're talking about, it may need to be just more data driven. Then we have empathetic tone. Make the tone warm, understanding, and supportive. Use softer transition words. Perfect for first-time home buyers. Estate sales, right? Because this is probably emotional. Someone has passed away, and now they are responsible for selling this property, and there's so many emotions involved. Nervous clients, anxious clients, clients who have put an offer in on a property before and the inspection went terribly. So now they're kind of skeptical and nervous about this next offer they're about to put in. You want to kind of come back from the data and include a little bit more understanding, patient, compassionate. And then we have urgent. Make the tone exciting and time sensitive, right? So people can take action. This is something that like you're telling them to take action on this, book this, schedule this, register for this, come see this listing. Use short sentences. This is going to be best for hot new listings and multiple offer situations. You want it short and concise. What's the average number of days on market when buyers can start to negotiate a little with the price? Simmer, that is a great question. It's not a specific number and it's not like across the board and all the time. So this January through the last 60 to 90 days is going to be one number versus the next 30 to 90 days, right? That's coming ahead of us because the market is always changing. But the way to get that is actually on the MLS. When you go into and there's a video on the drive about how to use that to get the details for like specific neighborhoods. But that's another thing. It changes on neighborhood. In South Philly, pockets in South Philly, 19145, 19146, they're going super fast. Whereas if you're in, let's just say, I don't know, let's just say maybe Albany, it may take a little bit longer right now in the market. Maybe you're in 19120, that might take a little bit longer. So it just depends. But always go into MLS and it'll come up like what's the average days on market. But that's a really good question.
Thank
That's
you.
how you're so welcome. In general, like, I mean, and again, it depends, and I don't want to give exact numbers, but if I see something that's like 60 plus days, that is, I'm paying a little bit more attention, like at the comps and saying, okay, what's going on here? Can we negotiate? But usually anything that's like 42, even 50, depending on the market, is not really like a red flag. But probably 2 months means that it's maybe priced too high or it's a lot of other active listings in the area. All right, professional, empathetic, urgent. No one agent is one of these all the time. 9 times out of 10, every agent can be one of these at any given time, with any given client. So make sure you're clear with AI which one you're being in that context. All right, another way, so again, make your AI human and you and sound like you and not like a billion other realtors. You want to give it a human polish. AI gets you the content, you make it human. I can't stress that enough. And then, like I said earlier in 12 o'clock class, the human part is where you build trust. That's where your person's like, this is my realtor. This is my homegirl. Okay. The last 10% is where your commission is earned. Information versus like connection is so different. And that's why people are going to choose you over the other realtors because somehow you've made them have a connection with you. Because if it was just about data, they could pick anybody. But when it's about intent, connection, trust, relationship, that's how you earn your commission. They work with you. So these are the three things you're also going to look at before you copy, paste, and send it. So first we looked at the tone, make sure it matches the context. And then we're going to look at hallucinations. Did AI invent a feature that the house doesn't have? Now this is for visuals as well as context, so copy, writing. I saw a video earlier somebody sent me and this man was eating and the spoon turned into a fork. And I'm like, wait, other than that, the video, like there was some other things about the video that if you really watch closely, you'll be like, okay, I think this is AI. But other than that, it looked like it could have actually happened. But I'm like, he's eating the noodles and he had a fork and there was a spoon. It was a spoon, then it turned to a fork. Right. So you really have to pay attention to that kind of stuff. Or like you guys have probably played around with AI and with a picture of yourself, and next thing you know, you had 3 arms. And if you weren't paying attention to it, you wouldn't even have realized that like you had an extra hand over here somewhere. So make sure whether it's text or whether it's a picture, that something is not created that doesn't exist. So you want to make sure you edit that out. Sometimes AI will over-explain and add some fluff. So if the opening phrase is something that you wouldn't necessarily say or really isn't necessary, you can go ahead and take that out or edit it. I hope this email finds you well. I mean, I can't say I really use that in 90% of my emails. I am writing you today to blank, probably unnecessary. The bar stool test, read the text out loud. If you wouldn't say it to a friend at the bar, change the wording. No, not saying that talking to a client is like talking to a friend at the bar. But if you read it out loud and it doesn't flow and it doesn't feel like organic and genuine to you, we probably need to change a little bit more of the words. Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I see content on Instagram and I read the caption and I can tell that it's AI, like it gives me that vibe that a human did not read that did not write it. It just kind of turns me off a little bit. It's like, you don't care enough about me that you ain't go in and edit it. Like, I'm fine with using AI, which are using it because it's efficient and helpful, but you didn't want it to sound like you know what I mean? Like, it's just something about it. So make sure I know I do it. I know that's the thoughts that I have, so I can imagine other people have that thought. I like when things are more like blog like a story, or it's like personable. So think about your ideal client. They will probably be looking for the same thing. Another follow-up thing you can do, and this is the one where you're going to use AI. So the other two are you, right? You're the one going in, making sure that the tone is one of these. You're going in, checking for these three things. For this one, after AI gives you that response that you think you want, you want to write it again and say, rate this email on a scale from 1 to 10 for persuasiveness and suggest one improvement before you send it. So after you read it, you're like, okay, I think it's ready, or maybe, hey, I don't see anything that's kind of throwing me off. You're going to go in and ask AI to do the same thing. This is a good way to catch any other suggestions. Another prompt I've heard of before and I've used is like when it says, tell me any gaps in my thinking or explanation, right? Any holes in that, or, like, let me know if there's any other thing that I haven't thought about already. That's helpful as well. So as a recap, we're going to use RISE, role input specifics expectation. Be hyper specific. This is really helpful also in command. If you really want to be organized, which we're doing in 2026, say when you're doing a buyer consultation, make sure you have your command open, like their contact sheet and command open, and click notes and type in the notes that you're having when you're on the phone with them. Obviously, you're not gonna be able to type like word for word everything they say. But again, we're paraphrasing, we're putting in like key things, whether they said neighborhoods, whether they said they just got a new job, like anything that you feel like, okay, I'm going to need to remember this. Excuse me. That way, in your follow-up email, which we always send after consultation, you can mention any of those specifics as well. And the good thing about command, if you use command for CRM, is that also gives you a summary now. Like when you go into a context command profile, it gives you a summary of like any information or context and communication you've had with them as well. But make sure to be super hyper specific. Iterate on tone. After you read that first draft, 10 times out of 10, it probably needs some other kind of edits. Does it need to be warmer? Does it need to be shorter? Does it need to be more streamlined, more professional? Add your human touch to it. If you're funny, and you have like this wit, or you have whatever your tone is with your clients, you want to make sure you input that into your chat as well. The agent who use AI to be more personal, not less, wins the market. Because again, it's about building trust. If I'm sending an email about like a home buyer process and this looks like a robot just did it and it sounds like AI, they could have just Googled that. What's the home buying process, right? They're asking you for a reason. They're asking you because they want to know from your experience, from your perspective, from your expertise, what does that look like? Have a signature system and tone that people relate to you. Like, hey, I like the way Q really explains, seller information, or I love the way Alasia breaks down the leasing process. Like have it to where they want to hear it the way that you speak it. That should be something when you ask a client for a review that they mention. You want them to mention, I love the way they broke down information. I love the way that they communicated efficiently. And the best thing about this is that once you get these prompts and you like these responses, again, you can save these as drafts. You can save these as templates. You can save these in your Google Docs and label them this scenario. So scenario, neighborhood update, where this is a really good one too. The curious homeowner. Save this as something in your Google Docs so that when you continue having these conversations and sending these emails, you could just kind of copy and paste and tweak it as you need to. All right. Any questions or like other bits of information you guys need about like using these AI prompts or the RISE method?
I have a question. It's not kind of
Mhm.
it's kind of off topic, but
That's okay.
in regards to like, being a new agent, I forgot to ask
Mhm.
this earlier because we were talking about like Zillow and everything. So
Mhm.
should we like make accounts with like Zillow and like Realtor.com and like all those different accounts so that when like, we'll be able to like get leads? Are we supposed to be doing that?
So you can,
Mhm.
um, it's not a must. It's just it's an option for sure. And with them all, they all have like different criteria and they all have like different benefits and pros and cons. So like one might say, okay, if you get a lead from such and such.com, we take 35% of the commission. Right. So then
Mhm.
you just have to think, okay, is this worth it for me? For some agents, you're like, hey, having a lead is better than not having a lead. So that 35%, like that might make sense. Or if you're like, hey, I do really good with lead gen on my own, I don't necessarily need to do this, then it might not work for you. And they all have their own things. But for sure, I would at least try it. Like Realtor.com, Zillow.com. I know those are two. There was one called Opsity. I don't know if people really use it anymore, but that was
Mhm.
another method as well. So it doesn't hurt to try it and see if you like it and if it's efficient for you. But yes,
Okay.
You said
yes, that's a good
obscenity?
question. It's Opsity, Opcity.
I still use them.
You said you
Okay.
started to use them?
Yeah, I still use them. I've been
Oh,
using
okay, you
them
still
for
use them.
years. They pretty good. It's just that you gotta be straight with the
Fast.
right, because
Mm-mm.
they'll have you running around. And I learned
Yes.
from a last meeting that if they don't sign that buyer agency agreement, not to take them out to show them houses.
Exactly, exactly. You got to vet them just like anyone else. Because yes, these other sites, Realtor.com, Zillow, Opcity have their own methods, but sometimes I'm telling I've been on Opcity and I stopped recording. But uh Opcity, the leads will have like this janky looking pre-approval. But if you're a new agent, you have no idea if it looks janky or not. Right? You're just like, hey, get a house lender. And they're like, who is that? But you don't know that this is a lender that is not commonly used because you're a new realtor. So even doing something as like small as actually I did it today with another lender. A client came to me and said, Teonna, I bought my house, my previous house with this lender. Can I use them again? Sure. I just looked up the lender. I looked up the name of the lending company he's with, and I liked what I saw. I said, oh, okay, this makes sense because a lender will make or break your deal. Right. So when you're using these sites, just know you still also have to vet the information that you get from your client. But they can be super helpful. Oh, I thought I started recording. Go ahead.